Hi, Rachel. I read over your prospectus and I liked the organization of your paper and in understanding the thesis statement and your overall argument. I thought that it was a very good topic, and so I'm excited to see the end result. Um, so something with this paper that's very interesting is Brother Osted has taught us how to write these smaller portion papers to make an argument and to argue it out so that the audience understands exactly what we are trying to say and actually begins to believe us. And that's the purpose of an argumentative paper. And any paper that's actually trying to make a point or trying to demonstrate an observation is an argumentative paper. So this is helpful in almost every aspect of writing. So something that I do have a few comments. I do feel that the you gave a good summary in the beginning of this paper, and I know that you probably this is not the end result because you're only 3 pages in and you're just getting started. But I wrote a comment right here that says, interesting topic. I read the prospectus and remember looking it over. Something that may make this paper stronger would be placing a paragraph at the beginning of the paper that tells the audience exactly what you are arguing and how you are going to argue it. In other words, a thesis statement with a lead into why it is important. And from my understanding, Rachel, from the prospectus and um, is that your thesis is that postmodern Disney film demonstrates the philosophy of deconstructionism with the retelling of stories such as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and as well as Maleficent, by going from one extreme to the next. So, in essence, your argument is that Disney is demonstrating this deconstructionism, but you have a smaller argument within that is quite a bit more difficult argument to argue that um, this deconstruction that has occurred has actually gone from the extreme of putting women in the household and only they're held at a lower standard than men to men being placed at a lower standard. So that's essentially what the deconstruction is in your eyes. And so even though I didn't really tell the thesis very good right here, that's something that you might want to mention in the first paragraph. And then right here in that paragraph, and I can tell that this is an important topic. It needs to be discussed. So mentioning why does this need to be discussed? You mentioned later on in a paragraph about the inequality in today's world and how um, there's this social dichotomy that individuals that are males are taught this way and women are taught this way and are made to feel this way. So mentioning those things leading into it, saying in today's society, uh, these are some issues that I see, and this is my thesis statement. So, but you don't need to say this is my thesis statement. You say these are the issues, and then you state your thesis statement as to one of the reasons why you feel this is the case within society, that perhaps the deconstructionism that has occurred, this philosophy that has occurred, has in fact deconstructed things a little bit too far to the point where individuals, men are now degraded and women are made almost too powerful to the point where they don't need men. And so, and that's your argument. So I think that that would be an effective paragraph right there. Does that make sense? That would help your reader to know exactly what you're arguing, but not necessarily know every single point, because you don't need to lay out every single point, but they know the gist. And that will actually grab their attention, because then they see the the importance of this topic in society and in their own lives and how it could affect them. So that's my first suggestion is writing a paragraph that talks about the issues in today's society, and just like briefly, you don't need to go too in depth, but mentioning just a few and saying today's society, there seems to be a switch from one ideal to the other. So that's the first one. Right here, in almost all of your paragraphs, I noticed that the topic sentence could be a lot more strong. And what I mean by the topic sentence is that, and you know this, is the topic sentence gives purpose to your paragraph. So what I wrote is give purpose to your audience about the paragraph through a guiding topic sentence. Remember, the topic sentence should give meaning to the paragraph, and the paragraph will argue or give reason to your topic sentence. So that is essentially the purpose of the topic sentence, is to make your claim or to give purpose to the paragraph. And then the paragraph gives reason to that purpose that you're giving it. So what I mean by this is, if a paragraph is devoted to a summary of the old Snow White, the first sentence should mention this purpose. The last sentence should re-mention the purpose differently, and many times gives meaning to your overall argument. So in many cases, that last sentence should also give a meaning to your thesis statement. So linking it back to your thesis statement. The last sentence of every paragraph does that. The first sentence, your topic sentence, the last sentence retells your topic sentence and gives meaning as to why that connects to your thesis statement. So I would strongly encourage you to go through every paragraph and find that guiding principle. And the reason why this is important is because that gives focus to your paper, gives focus. And that's the most fundamental portion of that pyramid, like I mentioned. So I give an example of a topic sentence of that first paragraph that you have mentioned right here. And I'm not telling you to write the topic sentence like that. You can if you want, but and this might not be the point that you're trying to make, but if it's not, then you know why the topic sentence would be necessary, so that your reader, such as myself, would know exactly what you're trying to say with that paragraph. So what I put is, the main plot of the iconic film of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs may be summarized in a few simple sentences. So do you see how this topic sentence, it is almost like a transition, because it gives a guiding purpose to your paragraph. So do you see how that first sentence does that? So now the person who's reading that knows that you're about to give a plot summary of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And so then I go into it just like you did, and Snow White goes about wishing that someday her prince will come when she flees into the woods, ... finishing that paragraph. And then the last sentence, an example of that would be, this aforementioned plot is simple and well known to all those who are avid Disney moviegoers. And then you could add something that links that to the overall thesis statement. This summary is important, and I'm writing this as we go, just to give you an example of how we can link that back into the I'm back into the thesis statement. So we're going to go with your thesis statement on from one extreme to the next. This summary demonstrates the extreme plot, or I guess the extreme examples of how women have their place, because she is seen example of how women have their place because she is seen being saved from the prince and needing him to accomplish her purpose. That's just an example. I'm not telling you to write that, but that's just an example of how to link it in. And if that's not your purpose to link it in that paragraph, then that's okay. We can move on and keep going. But these are important. It's important to restate your thesis statement with a difference at the end of your paragraph and then link it back to the next. And then in the next paragraph, with Aurora, you do the same thing, and the same thing with the next, and the same thing with the next. So trying to mention the topic, sentence, and giving purpose. What is your argument, or what is it that you're trying to do with that paragraph? It's almost like a plan that you're making. Okay, so a lot of these opening paragraphs, I noticed that you make a lot of arguments, and within this paragraph especially, and within a lot of other ones, you make these arguments that I feel could be broken up. It seems like it's just a lot of thoughts just put down on this piece, in this paragraph, and I give examples. So I feel like if you cut this paragraph out and cut all of the paragraphs out that aren't necessarily, they're just telling you your overall argument without actually giving examples. You can cut those out and then add them back in as full paragraphs. So here's what I mean. You say Sleeping Beauty and Snow White would both die and would not have lived another day if it had not been for the men to save them. So one thing that you could do is write, Disney portrayed women as weak, such as in the examples of Snow White and in Sleeping Beauty. You could either separate those into two different paragraphs or into the same paragraph where you say Disney portrayed women as weak in Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. Or you could do Disney portrayed women as weak in Snow White, and in that she would have died without men. And then the next one, Disney portrayed women as weak in Sleeping Beauty when Aurora would have died without the man. Or you could combine those together and argue it together. But then you'd have to give examples in both movies of what of how you give an example within the movie of how they would have died without the man, and then you make your claim that demonstrates weakness. That because they would have died without the man, they wouldn't have been. That's one extreme. That was before. And so that's your overall argument right then, is that before deconstructionism, Disney portrayed women as weak in Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. So that's its own paragraph. And then you could go on later. Snow White adds to the stereotypes by showing her cleaning, doing chores, to the stereotypes towards women, by showing her cleaning, doing chores, singing, and dancing alone. And dancing. So do you see how you could then argue that particular argument just with that, by giving the examples within the film of how Snow White makes these, how Snow White is seen within the film cleaning, and how that adds to the stereotype, or just dancing and singing and nothing else. That's what she's seen doing. So there are more, but you get my point. So breaking them up into the most important points that you're trying to make, and then arguing that one specific point. So I feel like you have a lot to say, but you just need to break it down and then argue each point separately and individually, and organize these points together to the point where your reader can understand. So like, for example, you could do each section of maybe this is pre-postmodern, pre-deconstructionism, and then you can show post-deconstructionism and how that deconstructionism changed that particular issue. Um, so you can say scene cleaning and dancing, singing and chores. And then the next you could do, but in the postmodern film, Snow White and the Huntsman, this is what happens, which is the exact opposite of the one before. And that deconstructionism is what causes this change in thought process towards women. You get what I'm saying? You could do it that way, or what you could do is just argue pre postmodernism, say these are all the issues with, or this is one extreme from in Sleeping Beauty and in Snow White. All of these happened before, and then you could go argue after. You could make the switch halfway through the paper and say, but this is postmodernism, or this is deconstructionism at its best when this is what happens with the remaking of these films. Do you see what I mean? So you have so many options, but organizing it in a way where the reader can tell the difference, where they can see the easy flow. A lot of that happens with transitions, like I mentioned before. A lot of this happens with the topic sentence and the organization of the paper. And then I talk about, so I give you focus. I want you to focus mostly on the topic sentence and making your paper, organizing your argument throughout the paper. So writing, maybe one thing that you could do is write out all of the topic sentences that you're going to put throughout the paper, every single paragraph, because that's the main argument that you're going to make. Write the topic sentence out for each individual paragraph. So you can say, you already have your so you'll write your thesis paragraph, like I mentioned, and then write out each topic sentence, and then later on go back and write the paragraph that goes along with that topic sentence, if that makes any sense at all. That would be extremely helpful, because then that will help you to know how to organize your paper. So you're like, okay, this idea seems completely unrelated with the other idea right before it. How can I switch this up? Do you see what I mean? So there's so many options. The option that I like best, and this is just personal opinion, is the one where I mentioned how you could write the topic sentence, how you could write about the pre-postmodernism and then the deconstruction paragraph that refutes that what just happened before it, and mention how men are needed later on. If that makes any sense. So like they're seen only doing chores, cleaning, cooking. This is a stereotype of women. However, postmodern, the deconstructionism, post-deconstructionism film by Disney is seen in this way, the exact opposite. And so that's your overall argument. And then your reader can see, okay, so it's seen in this film and it's not seen in this film. It's seen in this film and it's not seen in this film. And then they can draw these conclusions and see the polar opposites, which is exactly what you're trying to argue, is that they go from one extreme to the next. And I hope that I'm not wrong, that truly is your argument. Lastly, content, which is the next level up on that pyramid that I always talk about. So first is focus, next is content, and then it goes organization. Paper level organization, then paragraph level organization. I've covered most of them throughout this paper, but here I like the points that you're making, but it sounds like your opinion. And here's why it sounds like your opinion: because there's no data that backs it up, or no examples that back it up. So you can say stereotyping has been such a hindrance on the abilities of men and women. Why do you say that? See, with every claim that you make, such as that, there needs to be something that argues in favor of that, something that is either peer-reviewed or well-respected. Data, such as 99% of men are stereotyped today, or 76% of women are stereotyped. You get what I'm saying? That adds more to your argument than just saying stereotyping has been such a hindrance on the abilities of men and women. So why do you say that? Or mentioning why you say that, giving an example. You say, even in today's world with women out in the workforce, almost as much as men doing jobs the men are doing, such as doctors, engineers, and scientists, women are still seen and treated as pretty, submissive housewives they were in the 50s. Why do you say that? In what ways? What data do you have, or why do you think that way? Because you mention it, but does everybody feel that way? And if they don't, then what data or what examples can you show them that will help them to change their view? Like I mentioned before, uh, the there is such a, I guess you're trying to argue two different points, but you can still do it, as I mentioned before, with the organization. And the point that I'm trying to make with this is that a paper of this magnitude must not have statements like these and other claims without content that backs it up. Brother Ostad will not accept just pure opinion on this paper. It needs to be, it needs to have some substance that backs it up. And this will actually occur in life as well, within all of your writings. Somebody will not just believe you if you say something like that. They might have an opposite opinion. However, if you show them why you believe that way, or what data supports that, or what examples support that, or what writers have written about that as well, then they will start to believe that you've actually formulated your opinion on facts, and that will then create a stronger argument. So I'm not getting down on you. I'm not disagreeing with you at all on this section. I completely agree with you in many ways. There is still this issue in the world. However, why do you feel that way? Is there any data or facts to back that up? Are there any publications that of people that have written, that are well respected, that have written about this issue, who also mention this exact same thing? And so if you go into that, then the reader will know. So that's second on the list, making sure that everything that you argue has a backing, has something, has a reasoning behind what you're saying, besides just your own experience. If you do that, your paper will be exceptional, exceptional. If you do all of these things that I've mentioned. I will mention that this is not a comprehensive overview of everything that you may change in your paper, but this is a very good start, and I think that you've done a very good job of beginning this paper. So remember, write a paragraph that gives your thesis statement, your overall thesis statement, what you're trying to argue, and give I guess, for example, a lot of these points that you make down here about, you know, the issues today could be talked about in the first paragraph, where, you know, giving a lead in into the issues today and why they're important, and then make your argument. And then remember, topic sentences for each paragraph. Go through and write a topic sentence for each of the paragraphs that you're going to write before you ever write the rest, the whole paper. Write the topic sentences, because that's the gist and overall argument of your paper. And then be sure to break up your arguments into easily argued pieces, and make sure that whenever you argue something, that there's content that backs it up instead of just mentioning it. And those are all the things that I can give you for today. And it seems like that's a lot, but I know that you'll just do great on this. So good job.